Hello everybody and welcome back to DTDcember, a series in which I'll be counting down my top 12 GTA villains of all time. If you want more info on this whole thing, feel free to check out my first video in this series where I explain the rules of my list. Or if you haven't seen my previous DTDcember videos and want to avoid spoilers, check out this playlist to watch every prior entry up to this point. Today, I'll be talking about my number 5 entry into this list, Big Smoke from San Andreas. We first meet the Fat Man after CJ makes his return to his home on Grove Street following a 5-year hiatus. As our protagonist endures some flashbacks while the reality of his mother's death truly sets in, he's suddenly interrupted by Big Smoke.
You picked the wrong house, fool!
Once our old friend recognizes us, he pulls CJ into a hug and goes with him to his mother's funeral, where we meet up with the rest of the old gang at Ryder and Sweet, and have to escape some attacking ballers with them on bikes as we make it back to the Grove. Throughout the first arc of this game, CJ works with Smoke, Ryder, and Sweet to help restore the honor he lost for abandoning his family, as well as rebuild our gang into the force it once was. Along the way, we see the four get along like childhood friends while they're all together, and we see each of our homies show CJ love whenever it's just the two of them. In this arc, we feel a real sense of brotherhood between this quartet of iconic characters, as if nothing could ever tear them apart, and that together, they're going to rise as the kings of Los Santos with their army of Grove Street families. That is until the betrayal. Let me tell you, when I first witnessed this reveal, my jaw dropped, and to be quite honest, I've had trust issues ever since. How could Big Smoke, our homie, our dog, the funny fat man who ordered 2 number 9s, how could he of all people do this to CJ? By working with Tenpenny and associating himself with the motherfucking Green Saber, Smoke bears responsibility for CJ's mother's death. And after this bomb is dropped, we don't even have time to process it because we have to go across town immediately and rescue Sweet now that CJ's realized his brother has walked into a trap. Following CJ's subsequent exile, Big Smoke becomes absent from our screens until the end of the game, but unlike with our last entry, Dimitri, Smoke's absence makes a lot more narrative sense since he would assume that at this point, CJ and the Grove have been defeated, so there's no reason to travel across the state to finish him off. However, much like many of the other villains I've talked about so far, his absence ultimately hurts him because, while vengeance is on the minds of our protagonist and his allies until the end of San Fierro, by the time we get to Las Venturas, Smoke has pretty much become an afterthought. CJ's new focus seems to be solely on building up his family's business ventures around the state, as well as getting Sweet out of prison. And even when he finally makes his return to Los Santos, he shows he has no interest in combating Smoke, as his only real concern is managing Mad Dog. It's only when we finally earn Sweet's release that our brother reminds CJ of the importance of getting revenge on Smoke and avenging their mother. Once Big Smoke re-enters CJ's crosshairs, the Johnson brothers begin to work tirelessly to uncover his whereabouts so that they may take him down once and for all. After he's been tracked down, CJ busts into his crack fortress and begins a climactic shootout with all of Smoke's forces, taking on members of the Ballas, the Vagos, and the Rifas, who we've spent the whole game fighting individually, but here they're all a united army under Big Smoke. After clearing floor after floor of these gangsters, we eventually reach the man himself to have one last confrontation with him where he explains why he did what he did. And while we've always known Smoke to be a big, lovable, and lighthearted friend, this is the first time we hear him speak to us in such a cold and aggressive way, now that he doesn't have to put on an act any longer. Following a subsequent boss fight against Smoke and more of his men, we eventually bring him to the brink of death to have one last dialogue with him. He explains that he was caught up in the money and the power, and even though he was responsible for CJ's mother's death, you can still feel the pain in our protagonist's eyes as he watches the life drain from the friend he once loved. Big Smoke may not be the main villain of San Andreas, but he was still a damn impactful one. He may not be on screen for a horribly long amount of time, but whenever he is, he almost always steals the show in his own charming way. Because of his comedic antics and the love he always showed his homies, it made it incredibly heartbreaking to witness his betrayal. And even though he's undeniably evil for involving himself in the death of 2 of his best friends' mother en route to building his empire, I still can't help but wish things didn't have to be this way whenever I have to put him down at the end of the game. Most of the other antagonists I've talked about so far aren't like this. When you kill someone like Sonny Forelli, Devin Weston, or Dmitri Raskolov, you feel good knowing you finally put away the man who's given your protagonist so much torment. But when you kill Big Smoke, you feel like you've just had to kill your best friend. While he may be hindered a bit by a lack of exposure throughout most of the game, the way his actions impact the life of our protagonist and his allies, and the emotional impact he leaves on the player are what earn him the number 5 spot on the list of greatest GTA villains of all time. But what do you think? Do you think he should have a higher or lower place on this list, or did I get his spot right? And what do you think of DTDcember so far as well? Please let me know your opinions down below. And if you've enjoyed this series so far, feel free to leave a like on this video, and subscribe if you haven't done so already, so that you'll be notified this Thursday when I return with the number 4 entry for this list. Until then, I hope you have a blessed few days, and I'll see you all then. This is your boy Dog6, and I am signing off.